I would 110% be the reason that this heist fails because I can't even do a pull-up. I would never be able to climb up that rope of the incinerator. Like, this would be it. I would just look around, I'll be like, I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm back. I need to get through this before I get too embarrassed and chicken out. Where do we leave off? We left off with, hold on a second. I just riled myself up again. The Kaz, the Kanej interaction on the boat. We finished off there. So that was chapter 18. Then we go to chapter 19 from Matthias' point of view. And this is when we get our flashback of Nina and Matthias. Oh my gosh, can I just say that rereading this part, I can't even believe how good of a job Netflix's Shadow and Bone did with adapting their storyline. They put the dialogue in like word for word. Like the wake up, you miserable lump of muscle. Matthias says it's not natural for women to fight. And Nina says it's not natural for someone to be as stupid as he is tall, and yet there you stand. They really took it straight from the book. Like, if they do that with the entire Six of Crows book, like if they're that faithful to it, I'm gonna pass out. Nina's like, why? What are you so afraid will happen? Afraid you might start to like me? That's it, isn't it? You don't want to like a Grisha. You're scared that if you laugh at my jokes or answer my questions, you might start thinking I'm human. Would that be so terrible? And then he says, I do like you. Callahan and Danielle, not me acting like I'm on a first name basis with them. Cal and Danny, they acted this part to perfection. Okay, let's move on to part 4, the trick to falling. So this is chapter 21 from Inej's point of view. They're all waiting in this like little cafe bakery thing, waiting for Nina to come back. To Matthias, this must be hard for you to be here but not really be home. First of all, let me just say, like, Inej is such a queen. Like, she's just so kind, like literally goals, what the heck. And then Matthias says, you have no idea. She says, I think I do. I haven't seen my home in a long time. And then it says Kaz turned away and began chatting with Jesper. He seemed to do that whenever she mentioned going back to Ravka. And then Inej and Matthias start talking about Nina, and then Inej says, so why do your eyes keep searching the crowd for her? I'm like, okay, call him out. The way that all the crows can like just see right through each other, but then everybody has like negative self-awareness. And then this is when they're about to begin the heist. They need to hop on board that carriage thing taking prisoners. Kaz is picking the lock to that carriage, but then he like freezes because there's a lot more prisoners in there than he thought that there were, which means that everyone's gonna have to be smushed in together like sardines. Oh my gosh, this scene was so stressful when they're all in it and Kaz needs to like put the door on its hinges again, and he's like doing it, but he keeps fumbling and like dropping the screws and stuff, which everyone is like, what is happening right now, Kaz? Like, the soldiers are coming, like they're gonna get caught. But luckily the hinges hold. Whew, and everything's good. And then it was because she was listening so closely that she knew the exact moment when Kaz Brecker, Dirty Hands, the bastard of the barrel, and the deadliest boy in Ketterdam fainted. I might be so bold to say that this is probably my favorite part of this whole book. I don't know why. So fun fact, I read this in one night. I remember staying up until like 2, 3 a.m. just ripping through this book. And I remember reading this part and my breath hitched. I was like, so chapter 22, Kaz's chapter. Now this is the one. This is the chapter where we learn about the fact that Kaz and Jordy both got fire pox, and then Jordy died. And then, oh my gosh, I can't even stomach this. It's actually, they're just like bodies just on the streets. So they would just gather all the bodies and just dump them into like the river. And the fact that Kaz was there in a pile of all these bodies, oh no. Then Kaz wakes up to a jab in the thigh and Inej being like, Kaz. And then he says, keep talking. And she's like, what? And he's like, just keep talking. This is the first time that we ever see Kaz vulnerable, right? And this is one of the first times that we really see that human part of him. He hated that Inej had seen him this way, that anyone had, but on the heels of that thought came another. Better it should be her. Yes. Of course it's Inej, the one who's gonna be there for him, because it said like in his bones he knew that she would never speak of it to anyone, that she would never use this knowledge against him. Inej would never betray him. He knew it. Which is so true, because the whole danger of this is the fact that once someone sees a weakness in Kaz, that means that they will be able to use it to their advantage. He knows that Inej would never do that. She also relies on his reputation, but no, actually, it's just because she's a good person. It's just because she's kind and good, and she is so the settler and Kaz is so the reacher. Okay, and then once they get to the ice palace, Kaz glimpsed Inej disappearing into the opposite arch with the other female prisoners, and he felt a twinge in his chest, and with a disturbing jolt, he realized it was panic. She'd been the one to wake him from his stupor in the cart. Her voice had brought him back from the dark. It had been the tether he gripped and used to drag himself back to some semblance of sanity. Very much giving me Percy and Annabeth in Tartarus vibes, if you know what I'm talking about. And then we have this whole scene, we have this whole moment. Inej once was teaching him how to fall, and then Kaz said like, oh, the trick is not getting knocked down. And then Inej says, no Kaz, the trick isn't getting back up. More Suli platitudes, but somehow even the memory of her voice helped. He kept her voice in his head, repeating those words again and again as he stripped off his boots, his clothes, and finally his gloves. Literally all of his armor, and it's Inej's voice in his head that is keeping him safe. This is the first time that he's taking off his armor because yes, you don't need it anymore, like not with Inej, like you know what I mean? And then this is when we have the revelation that Jesper is a fabricator and he extracts the iron ores from the bars in order to create those lockpicks for Kaz. There's that one moment in the show at the very beginning, like in episode 1, when Roddy is talking to Kaz and Roddy says like one of them Grisha witches or something along those lines, and then Kaz corrects him and says fabricator. It's a small detail, but I caught it. I caught on to it. This is because Kaz knows that Jesper is a fabricator, and obviously he doesn't want fabricators to be called Grisha witches. Okay, let's jump to chapter 25, which is Inej's chapter. This is when she is at the incinerator chimney thingy that she needs to climb out of. This right here, this chapter right here is the most stressful chapter in all of YA fiction, and you can't change my mind about that. Bro, I was so stressed out. I also have a fear of heights. Oh my gosh, this was so stressful. So yeah, she needs to casually just climb 6 stories of nothing really. Like what is she even holding on to? She has to find like these little crevices in the wall to like grip onto. I'm like, sis, where are the crevices? There's nothing. The fact that she uses Kaz's gloves, I just love the fact that like in their most vulnerable moments, right? But for both of them, they have a little piece of the other person that is keeping them safe, you know? Kaz has like Inej's voice in his head and Inej has Kaz's gloves with her. It's just perfect. When it said her foot slipped and then it said her shoes started melting, like girl, and then it says she forced herself to find the next hold. She didn't feel guilty. She wasn't sorry. She was just mad. Mad at Kaz for attempting this insane job, furious with herself for agreeing to it. And why has she? To pay off her debt? Or because despite all good sense and better intentions, she let herself feel something for the bastard of the barrel? And then we have a flashback to when Kaz first asks her to join the dregs. Like, I can't wait to see this scene adapted. When Inej is like, this isn't a trick, is it? And then Kaz says, if it were a trick, I'd promise you safety. I'd offer you happiness. I don't know if that exists in the barrel, but you'll find none of it with me. Oh, how right he was, but also how wrong. Okay, and then we're back to the present day. The stressful incinerator, I hate it here. She's like thinking of like giving up. She's just like, just let go of this, just let go. Then she heard it, a soft patter. She felt it on her cheeks and face. She heard the hiss as it struck the coals below. Rain. Oh my gosh, I remember reading this. I remember I was like, the biggest exhale ever. Okay, chapter 26, Kaz's chapter. This is when we see the next chapter of his backstory. And this is when we really see him transform into Kaz Brecker, the bastard of the barrel. When he wants a job and then the man is like, well, too bad, we already have a boy who cleans the piss pots. And then Kaz waits there in the alley for the boy to come, and then he, oh, I can't read this part. He sits down on the boy's legs, pulled off his shoes, then slashed the soles of his feet with a piece of broken bottle. And then the next evening he returned to the den and he's like, I want a job. And he had one. And then this is when he discovers that Jacob Hertzsoon is actually Pekka Rollins. This is when he finds Pekka Rollins in the cell. He screwed the heist for the rest of them, but like we don't find out actually what happened in that cell until much later. And it's just so genius. The fact that he lets Pekka go in order to have an IOU from him. Do you know that movie Lucy when it's like, what would happen if we use 100% of our brain? Kaz is literally using like 810% of his brain, just like all the time. Moving on to part 5, the ice does not forgive. We start off with Jesper's chapter 27. Inej succeeded in her climb and all the rest of them are climbing up on the rope. I'm always like, ooh, how fun would it be to be part of the crows? That would be such a party. I would 110% be the reason that this heist fails because I can't even do a pull-up. I would never be able to climb up that rope up the incinerator. Like this would be it. I would just look around and be like, I'm so sorry guys. I can't do it. I can't do a push-up, can't do a pull-up. can't climb a rope. I would not be able to climb a ladder up that 6-story chimney. Matthias and Wylan seized the rope to pull Jesper up. Jesper wasn't sure how much Wylan was actually helping, but he was certainly working hard. Okay, relax. Yo, why you gotta go after Wylan's throat? He went after Wylan's wig every single time. And then everybody is looking at Cass like, what the heck, dude? Like, where were you? Like, you almost compromised this whole mission. And then Cass says, I went looking for Pekka Rollins. A look passed between Cass and Inej that Jesper didn't understand. There was knowledge in it that he'd been locked out of. That's actually kind of sucky, like, but also like Jesper, leave them alone. They have a connection, okay? So chapter 28, Inej's chapter. And Jesper says, if any of you survive, make sure I have an open casket. And I just love that because that was also in the show. It's that scene where they're on the sand skiff in like the 7th episode, I think. Jesper says, if any of you survive, make sure I have an open casket. And then Cass says, no one's dying tonight, no mourners. And then Inej says, no funerals. And that was our first no mourners, no funerals of this TV show, and it was spectacular. Okay, and then Cass and Inej have their moment here, and I can't even talk about it. This is the part, I can't. And they're like kind of saying their final goodbyes because they don't know who is going to end up making it. Inej wants a moment with Cass. Oh. She says, when we get back to Ketterdam, I'm taking my share and I'm leaving the dregs. He looked away. You should. You are always too good for the barrel. And then Cass? So sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so thirsty. Cass snagged her wrist. If we don't make it out, I want you to know, ... Like, he really snagged her wrist, like, voluntarily. She reached up and touched his cheek. She thought he might flinch again, even knock her hand away. In nearly 2 years of battling side by side, this was the first time she had touched him skin to skin. Ladies and gentlemen, this momentous occasion, call the president, assemble the press. He stayed still, but she saw a tremor pass through him, as if he were waging a war with himself. Because I already know Freddie Carter is gonna pop off. He's gonna pop off with his tremor acting. Then Inej says, if we don't survive this night, I will die unafraid, Cass. Can you say the same? She could see it took every last bit of his terrible will for him to remain still beneath her touch. I literally a ringing just started in my ears. And yet he did not pull away. She knew it was the best he could offer. It was not enough. She dropped her hand. He took a deep breath. Cass had said he didn't want her prayers and she wouldn't speak them, but she wished him safe nonetheless. She had her aim now. Her heart had direction. And though it hurt to know that path led away from him, she could endure it. I need a moment of silence. I'm so sorry. Okay, honestly, these next couple of chapters were so freaking stressful. Okay, so then Nina is like flirting her way with Broom, and then he ends up taking her into the treasury to look at all the Grisha who are on Jorda Parem. And she ends up being finessed by Broom because Broom, of course, knew it was Nina the whole time, and then he ends up trapping her in one of those Jorda Parem cells. No, this vengeance is not mine to take. There's someone else who owes you much more. And then Matthias? Little do we know that all of us are being bamboozled because he's about to triple cross Broom. Nina showed him 1,000 ways that she was honorable and strong and generous and very human, maybe more vividly human than anyone he'd ever known. And if she was, then Grisha weren't inherently evil. Oh, I just love the payoff of like Matthias actively working to overcome his own prejudices. And then Matthias says to Broom, the life you live, the hate you feel, it's poison. I can drink it no longer. Matthias has, let me tell you, one of the best character arcs in this story. And then Nina and Matthias finally reunite and they try to go find Bo Yulbayer, but then they actually find Kuei Yulbayer, which is Bo Yulbayer's son. They end up taking him and meeting back up with Kaz. Then they freaking water slide down that tree into the gorge. Kaz is about to drown. Kaz remembered Inej perched on the sill of his attic window. She'd been feeding the crows that congregated on the roof. Kaz says, you shouldn't make friends with crows, and she says, why not? He looked up from his desk to answer, but whatever he'd been about to say had vanished on his tongue. The sun was out for once, and Inej had turned her face to it. Her eyes were shut, her oil black lashes fanned over her cheeks. The harbor wind had lifted her dark hair, and for a moment, Kaz was a boy again, sure that there was magic in this world. Oh my gosh, he's so in love with her. I'm like about to cry. She laughed, and if he could have bottled the sound and got drunk on it every night, he would have. It terrified him. I can't. Kaz forced himself to remember Jordy's name, but all he could think of was Inej. She had to live. Here we're seeing that shift in Kaz. Before this point, he was very much greed is the only motivation. Vengeance, anger, pulling him through, remembering Jordy's name, wanting to take down Pekka Rollins, like that was his only motivation. And then in this moment, he's forcing himself to try to do that again, right? But no, there's something else all he could think about was Inej, and he has a new motivation for wanting to live and wanting to succeed. I'm not okay. This passage is so beautiful, maybe my favorite passage of this entire book. That she was lovely and brave and better than anything he deserved. He was twisted, crooked, wrong, but not so broken that he couldn't pull himself together into some semblance of a man for her. That without meaning to, he'd begun to lean on her, to look for her, to need her near. He needed to thank her for his new hat. I have to take a break.
2 hours later.
Okay, hi, I'm back. Let's move right on to part 6, Proper Thieves. So this is the part when Inej, Jesper, and Wylan literally all steal a tank. Like, OMG, okay, remember like at the beginning of this when they were like, we're gonna sneak in and sneak out of the ice palace before anybody knows that the prisoner is missing? Literally, no. Tank. And then they blow up that bridge. They get to the harbor, but then plot twist, there's actually a bunch of soldiers there and they're kind of screwed. And then Nina comes in to save the day, and Nina freaking is like, give me that Jordan Pura. She single-handedly takes down the entire army. Everybody is shooting at her. The bullets keep leaving her and she just keeps healing herself. She really said like Uno reverse. And then they finally leave, and I can't believe it. They did it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, it's been a mild success. It was actually a series of many failures, but afterwards on the boat, Nina and Inej are having a little moment together, and this part, Nina is suffering through withdrawal, obviously from the Joda Param, and she's like, I wish you could see what I do. I can hear every body on the ship, the blood rushing through their veins. I can hear the change in Kaz's breathing when he looks at you. It catches every time, like he's never seen you before. If you don't have someone whose breath catches every time they see you as if they've never seen you before, what are you doing? Why are they perfect? Oh my gosh, and then you already know what's about to happen. Inej told Kaz about her dream of having her own crew and taking down slavers. And she's like, oh, isn't there anything you want, Kaz? More money, more mayhem, more scores to settle. And then Inej turned to go. Kaz seized her hand, keeping it on the railing. He didn't look at her. Stay, he said. Stay in Ketterdam. Stay with me. Oh. Everything in her wanted to say yes, but she would not settle for so little. Not after all she'd been through. And I'm like, as you should, queen. And she says to Kaz, what would be the point? And then he says, I can't say it. I can't say it. He says, I want you to stay. I want you to ... I want you. You need to calm down. Because she says, you want me. She turned the words over. Gently, she squeezed his hands. And how will you have me, Kaz? You need to calm down now. There are children here. How will you have me? Fully clothed, gloves on, your head turned away so our lips can never touch. Maybe it was because his back was to her that she could finally speak the words. I will have you without armor, Kaz Brecker, or I will not have you at all. For all his selfishness and cruelty, Kaz was still the boy who had saved her. She wanted to believe he was worth saving too. Okay, chapter 44, Jesper's chapter. So the part that says like, Kuwei would sometimes just appear on deck at night and stand silently beside Jesper, staring out at the waves. It was a little unnerving. Little did we know that that actually is Wylan the entire time being tailored as Kuwei. Like, they're so funny. They're just like little kids on the playground. Wylan doesn't know what to do with himself, so he just stands beside Jesper in absolute silence. Like, is that not uncomfortable? Like, that's so funny. Anyway, the gang finally gets back home to Ketterdam and they have their meeting with Van Eck. And then Van Eck, the little snake, says, there's no way any of you are getting off this island. Then he blows his whistle and then his little squallers come, and like that whole thing about Wylan was just so heartbreaking. They read all of Van Eck's letters to Wylan and it was just taunting him about the fact that Wylan can't read and write. Oh my gosh, how much of a bad person do you have to be to like do that? Because do you know how much effort it takes to like write a letter and send it? And there were like several. Van Eck is like, he's a disgrace to my house. And Jesper's like, you're the fool. He's smarter than most of us put together and he deserves a better father than you. And then it's the big reveal that Wylan was tailored to become Kuwei. Van Eck is like, kill everyone. Kaz is like, kill us and you'll never find Kuwei. And Van Eck says, kill everyone but Brecker. Kaz knew the instant he made his mistake. His eyes should have stayed trained on Van Eck. Instead, in that moment of threat, when he should have thought only of the fight, he looked at Inej. And then Van Eck is like, leave the others, just get the girl. Kaz has spent all of his life trying to create a monster out of himself and relies on other people being so human to trick them. Here it's like reversed. Van Eyck is the real monster, and then Van Eyck uses the one human point of Kaz to take advantage of him. Like, it really just all comes full circle. So yeah, they're not able to save Inej and she's taken away. And then it ends off with, I'm going to get my money and I'm going to get my girl. Inej could never be his, not really, but he would find a way to give her the freedom he promised her so long ago. Dirty Hands had come to see the rough work done. And then that's it. And then that was the end of Six of Crows. This was such a good decision, rereading Six of Crows. Like, am I the only one that gets like this? I have so many feelings about a book, a story, a romance, a character, whatever. And I just need to alleviate this energy. I have to reread it and talk about it, which is why I'm making this video. If you watched this video up until now, like, you must be a bigger Six of Crows and Kanej fan than I am. Anyway, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!